Daejo gripped the controls of his cargo ship as the alarm screamed. Through the cabin, every screen had gone dark except for one which showed something impossible. A ship hung in space near Jupiter, so massive that his mind refused to accept its size. It looked like someone had carved a mountain into the shape of a blade and taught it to fly. "What is that?" Hijin whispered from the communication station. Her hands shook as she tried to restart the dead systems. Nothing worked. The engines had stopped. Life support ran on backup power. Even the coffee maker had shut down. Daejo had been a cargo captain for 15 years. He had survived engine failures, pirate attacks, and one very angry customs inspector on Mars, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien ship did not move. It simply existed, and that existence made every human machine stop working. "Are we dead?" Hijin asked her. Voice cracked on the last word. "Not yet," Daejo said. He tried to sound brave, but his heart hammered against his ribs like it wanted to escape. The communication system sparked to life. Without Hijin touching anything, a sound came through the speakers like wind moving through metal caves. It hurt to hear. Daejo's nose started bleeding. Hyen covered her ears and screamed. Then the sound changed. It became words, but words that felt wrong in Daejo's head. "We see you," the voice said. "We know you." Every ship in the solar system had stopped. On Earth, people looked up at the sky and knew something terrible had arrived. The military bases went silent. The space stations drifted without power. Millions of people held their breath and waited to die. The alien ship began to glow. Light poured from it in colors that had no names. The light touched Earth, Mars, Venus, and every human settlement. It passed through walls and skin and bone. Daejo felt it move through him like cold water. The light saw everything, his memories, his fears, his secret shame about stealing candy when he was 7. Everything. Hijin sobbed quietly. Daejo wanted to comfort her, but he could not move. The light held him frozen. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt broken. Then the light stopped. Alien ship remained dark and silent. Daejo gasped and realized he had not been breathing. Hijin threw up into a waste bin. Around Earth, people collapsed in the streets, crying and shaking. The voice returned, softer this time, but still painful. "You remind us of what we lost," it said. "That was all. No explanation, no demands, no threats." The alien ship began to move. It did not turn or accelerate. It simply stopped being near Jupiter and started being somewhere else. Within seconds, it had vanished from every sensor and telescope that humanity owned. Power returned to Daejo's ship. The engines hummed back to life. His coffee maker beeped cheerfully. Hijin stared at her screens. As data flooded back in, "They're gone," she whispered. "Just gone." Daejo guided his ship back toward Mars, but his hands would not stop shaking. He kept waiting for the alien ship to return and finish what it had started. Every shadow looked like death. Every star looked like an enemy. On Earth, the governments held emergency meetings. Military leaders argued about what to do. Scientists examined every piece of data from the encounter. Religious leaders called it a miracle or a warning or the end of days, but nobody understood. The aliens had the power to destroy humanity in seconds. Every analysis proved it. They could have wiped out Earth with a thought. Instead, they looked at humanity and left Why that night Joe could not sleep, he kept hearing that voice. You remind us of what we lost. What did beings that powerful lose? What could they possibly miss? Jin found him in the cargo bay, staring at boxes of mining equipment. Do you think they'll come back? She asked. Diho thought about lying. He thought about saying something comforting, but Hejin deserved the truth. Yes, he said, and next time I don't think they'll spare us. Then why did they spare us this time? I don't know. Maybe they felt sorry for us. Maybe we entertained them. Maybe we reminded them of their pets. Joe laughed, but it sounded wrong. It doesn't matter. We're alive because they allowed it, that's all. But Hijin shook her head. No, they said we reminded them of something they lost. That means we have something they don't, something they can't have anymore. What could we possibly have that they don't? I don't know, but it was enough to keep us alive. Diho wanted to believe her. He wanted to think that humanity had some special quality that impressed the aliens, but deep down he knew the truth. They were insects that had not been stepped on, nothing more. 3 days later, Joe delivered his cargo to Mars. Life continued. People went to work. Children went to school. Everyone pretended that everything was normal. But nothing was normal. Humanity had learned a terrible truth. They were not alone in the universe, and the beings they shared it with could erase them whenever they wanted. Every night people looked at the stars differently. Every shadow seemed darker. Every moment of peace felt borrowed. The aliens had spared humanity once, only once, and everyone knew deep in their hearts that mercy would not come twice. Taeyong spent his days with old books and older mysteries. His office at the university overflowed with papers about the first contact. Everyone called it that now. Like naming, it made it less terrifying. The day the aliens came and left without killing anyone, that had been 100 years ago. People still argued about what it meant. Some said the aliens never existed. Mass hallucination, they claimed, caused by solar radiation or secret government experiments. Taeyong had stopped arguing with these people. The evidence filled entire buildings, but some minds refused to change. Others built churches around the event. They called the aliens angels or gods or saviors. They prayed to empty skies and waited for salvation. Taeyong found this sad but understandable. People needed to believe in something bigger than themselves. Taeyong believed in facts. The aliens had scanned Earth completely in under 3 hours. They had disabled every human machine simultaneously across 8 planets. They had spoken to humanity once and then vanished. These were facts. Everything else was guessing. But lately Taeyong had found something new, something that made his hands shake when he held the documents. Professor, a young voice interrupted his thoughts. Young Mi stood in the doorway, her military uniform crisp and perfect. She looked too young to be a fighter pilot. But then again, everyone looked young too. Taeyong, these days, the samples you wanted, Young Mi said, placing a sealed container on his desk from the debris field near Titan. Quote, Taeyong opened the container carefully. Inside were fragments of metal that should not exist. The same strange alloy from the alien ship, unchanged after a century in space. He had been collecting these pieces for years, building a map of where the alien ship had traveled. Thank you, Lieutenant. How is the outer colony's defense force Treating you to a young me shrugged, we. Practice shooting at targets and hope we. Never see anything real, it's boring. Work she paused, Professor do you really think they'll come back? I don't. No, Tessong admitted, but I'm starting to think they never completely left. He showed her his latest discovery. Ancient cave paintings from Earth dated to 30,000 years ago. Among the usual hunting scenes and handprints, someone had drawn a symbol, the exact same symbol that appeared on the alien ships. Hull, they were here before, Tessung said quietly. Long before we had cities, or writing or technology, they watched us then too. Yumi stared at the image. Why would they care about primitive humans? That's what I'm trying to understand. 3 weeks later, Yumi's squadron received an unusual assignment. A mining crew had found something on a dead planet at the edge of human space, something artificial, something old. Jinwoo, Yumi's squadron leader, gathered the pilots for briefing. We're going to investigate an alien structure. Could be nothing, could be dangerous. Either way, we're the first humans to see it. The flight took 2 days. Yumi spent the time reading Taeyong's notes about the first contact. She had been a child when it happened, too young to remember the fear. Her parents never talked about it. Most people didn't. It was easier to forget. The structure sat in the middle of a vast crater like a black crystal growing from dead stone. It made Young Mi's eyes hurt to look at directly. The shape seemed to change depending on where she stood. That's not natural, Jinwoo said. Unnecessarily, they approached carefully, weapons ready, hearts pounding. Yumi felt something pull at her, like the building wanted her to come closer. The entrance opened before they touched it. Inside, the walls glowed with soft blue light. Images appeared in the air, moving and changing. Young Mi saw cities that made human architecture look like children's blocks. She saw beings that looked almost human but not quite, laughing and dancing and fighting. It's a museum, Jinwoo whispered, a history of their people. The images continued. The beings grew more advanced. Their cities became perfect. Their bodies changed, becoming taller and smoother. But something was wrong. The beings stopped laughing. They stopped dancing. They moved like beautiful machines, efficient and cold. Young Mi watched as they reached for the stars. They conquered death. They conquered disease. They conquered everything except their own emptiness. They lost themselves, she said. They became so perfect that they stopped being alive. The images showed the final transformation. The beings merged with their technology, becoming something new, something powerful, something that could cross galaxies in seconds and shut down primitive machines with a thought. Something that looked at chaotic, messy, violent humans and remembered what it was like to feel. Jinwoo reached out to touch one of the images. We need to record this. The whole universe needs to know. The building shook. Alarms blared from their suits. It's self-destructing. Yumi grabbed Jinwoo and LT Unk and GT's arm. We have to leave. They ran for the exit. Walls began to collapse, folding in on themselves like paper burning. Young Mi made it through the door. She turned back and saw Jinwoo falling as the floor cracked beneath him. Go, he shouted. Tell them what we found. The buildings swallowed him. Yumi screamed his name, but her squadmates dragged her away. The structure imploded, leaving nothing but smooth crater floor. Jinwoo was gone. Oat. The history was gone. Only Young Mi's memories remained. She reported everything to her commanders. They listened carefully and told her to rest. Post-traumatic stress, they said. Hallucinations from equipment. Malfunction. These things happen in deep space, but Taeyong believed her when Yumi visited his office weeks later. He showed her more evidence, more ancient symbols, more pieces of the puzzle. They spared us because we reminded them of themselves, Taeyang said before they lost their humanity. They were like us, chaotic, creative, alive. When they looked at Earth, they saw their past and they couldn't destroy it. Axpan Yumi thought about Jin Woo. Gone but not forgotten. What happens when memories aren't enough? What happens when they decide our chaos is dangerous? Why then we hope, Taeyang said that. They remember why they spared us the first time. Sang-woo believed humanity could be better, not just stronger or smarter, but perfect, like the beings who had spared them 300 years ago. He stood before a crowd of 10,000 followers, his voice carrying through speakers across 50 colony worlds. We were given a gift, he said, the gift of knowing that perfection exists. We saw beings who transcended violence, hate, and chaos. Why should we not follow their path? The crowd cheered. They called themselves the pure path, and their numbers grew. Every day, people tired of war, tired of suffering, tired of being human with all its messy complications. In a military command center 3 systems away, General Boa watched the speech with cold eyes. She had fought in 5 colonial wars. She had lost friends to stupidity, greed, and bad luck. She understood suffering, but she also understood something Sang-woo did not. He's going to get people killed, she told her advisor. Hyano. Hyunu stared at the screen where Woo smiled his perfect smile. Once Hyunu had loved that smile. They had been students together, dreamers together, lovers together. Then Woo found his calling, and Hyunu found the military. Some distances could not be crossed. He believes what he's saying. Hyu said quietly, that makes it worse. The pure path started small: meditation centers, philosophy classes, dietary restrictions meant to purify the body. Harmless things that made people feel like they were improving, but improvement led to experiments, genetic modifications to reduce aggression, neural implants to control emotional responses, drugs that smoothed out the peaks and valleys of human feeling. Sang-woo and LT Unk and GT's followers volunteered eagerly. They wanted to shed their animal nature. They wanted to become something higher. The first problems appeared within months. Modified humans stopped caring about their families. They performed their jobs perfectly, but created nothing new. They followed orders without question, which made them excellent soldiers and terrible people. Bora watched colony after colony split into factions. Pure path settlements refused to trade with normal humans, calling them contaminated. Normal humans attacked pure path centers, calling them inhuman. Violence erupted across human space. Worst fighting since the colonial wars ended. We're destroying ourselves, Bora said during an emergency council meeting. And for what? To imitate beings we don't understand. We understand them, Sang-woo replied calmly. He had been invited to present his case. They achieved peace through perfection. They eliminated the flaws that cause suffering. We can do the same. They also eliminated everything that makes life worth living. Bora slammed her hand on the table. Did you miss that part? They gave up joy. Creativity, passion, everything that matters, those are weaknesses, Sang Woo said. Obstacles to enlightenment. Hyunu, sitting between them, felt something break inside. These two people represented the future of humanity, and they could not even agree on what humanity should be. There has to be another way, Hyunu said. Both of them ignored the comment. The war started officially when a Pure Path colony refused to allow normal humans to land. The humans landed anyway. Shots were fired, people died. Within weeks, the conflict had spread to 20 systems. Bora led the military response, trying to minimize casualties while defending normal humans. Sang Woo led the Pure Path resistance, his modified followers fighting with cold efficiency. But no creativity. Hyunu, caught between both sides, kept searching for answers. The old archives, the first contact records, the scattered evidence that Taeyong and others had collected over the centuries, and then Hyunu found it. Fragment of alien data overlooked because it seemed like noise. But it was not noise, it was a warning. Hyunu called an emergency meeting, forcing both Bora and Sang Woo to attend. Under threat of releasing the information publicly, the aliens didn't evolve into what they are, Hyansu explained, displaying the decoded data. They were changed, made into something perfect by an even older race. That older race believed perfection was the highest achievement. They were wrong. The data showed the truth. The older race had died out. They're perfect creations, unable to adapt to a changing universe. The beings who visited Earth, the ones who spared humanity, were the last survivors of a failed experiment. They didn't spare us out of mercy, Hyunu continued. They spared us because they recognized the trap they fell into. They saw us chaotic and flawed and alive, and they remembered what they lost. They left us alone because they wanted something in the universe to remain free. Sang Woo stared at the data, his face showing the first real emotion Hyansu had seen in years. Horror. My followers, Sang Woo whispered. What have I done to them? You made them perfect, Bora said without sympathy. Just like you wanted, and you turned them into shells. The Pure Path movement collapsed quickly once the truth spread. Sang Woo and LT Unk and GT as followers, those not too modified, underwent reversal treatments. Many could not be saved. They lived out their lives in quiet efficiency, neither happy nor sad, just existing. Sang Woo disappeared after issuing a public apology. Some said he went to a monastery, others claimed he killed himself. Hyunu did not try to find out. Some questions had no good answers. Bora continued her military service, but she changed. She saw now that human chaos was not a bug but a feature. Wars happened because humans cared too much, not too little. Mistakes happened because humans tried new things. Suffering existed because humans felt deeply. We almost threw it all away, she told Hyanu during one of their rare meetings. We almost became perfect little machines because we thought that's what advanced beings looked like. The aliens knew better, Hyansu said. That's why they spared us. They wanted at least one species in the universe to stay messy and alive. Boa smiled, something she rarely did. Then let's not disappoint them. Humanity emerged from the crisis, changed. They stopped trying to be something else and started accepting what they were. Flawed, chaotic, creative, and beautifully, stubbornly human. And somewhere in the distant dark, the beings who had spared them watched and felt something they had not felt in millions of years. Hope Kiwen had dreamed of deep space since childhood. Now at 43, he commanded humanity's first true exploration vessel built to travel beyond the mapped regions where humans had settled. The ship carried a crew of 200, enough supplies for 10 years, and one important mission: find out what else existed in the galaxy. His partner, AI chief scientist and the person who understood him better than anyone, stood beside him on the bridge as they prepared to jump beyond known space. Last chance to turn back, Ari said, with a slight smile. Not a chance, Kiwen replied. Among the crew was Saul Bin, barely 20 years old, who had won a competition to document the journey through art. The young artist carried cameras, sketchbooks, and an optimism that made older crew members nostalgic for their youth. The journey took them 18 months into the galactic edge, where stars grew sparse and darkness dominated. Sensors detected something that should not exist: a planet with artificial gravity in a region with no sun. It's maintained, AI said, studying the readings, powered by something we can't identify. This is active technology, not ruins. Kiwen ordered the ship closer. The planet's surface was covered in structures all made from that same strange metal humanity had found in fragments across space. The same metal from the ship that visited Earth 800 years ago. They built this, Kiwi said. This is theirs. The away team included Kiwen, AI, Solbin, and 20 security personnel. They landed near the largest structure, a building that seemed to grow from the planet itself. Unlike the self-destructing archive Yomi had found centuries ago, this place remained open and welcoming. Inside, the walls displayed images, but these moved in real time, responding to their presence. The story began to unfold without anyone touching anything. The beings had been like humans once. The images showed creatures with 2 arms, 2 legs, faces capable of expression. They fought wars. They fell in love. They created art and music. They laughed at jokes and cried at funerals. Then came their transformation. Not forced like the data suggested, but chosen. They saw suffering and decided to eliminate it. They saw conflict and decided to perfect themselves beyond its reach. One by one, they modified their bodies and minds, climbing toward an ideal of existence without pain. They thought they were ascending, whispered, but they were just removing themselves from life. The images showed the result: beings of incredible power who could travel between stars, manipulate matter, and live forever. But they stopped creating new things. They stopped having children. They stopped changing except to become more efficient. Then came the part that made Kiwen's breath catch: an image of Earth, primitive and chaotic, filled with humans killing each other over resources and ideas. The beings watched this planet and felt something they thought they had eliminated, longing they missed. Being alive, Solbin said softly, recording everything, all that power, and they missed being us. The images continued. The beings debated what to do about humanity. Some wanted to observe, others wanted to intervene to save humans from their violent nature. A few wanted to eliminate the pain of watching something they could never have again. In the end, they chose to spare humanity, not out of mercy or kindness, but out of hope. Hope that somewhere in the universe, someone would remain alive in the way they no longer could. The final image appeared, And this one spoke. The voice was the same one that had echoed through Dejoe's ship 8 centuries ago. You remind us of what we lost, it said. We removed pain but discovered that pain is the price of joy. We removed conflict but discovered that conflict drives growth. We removed death but discovered that death gives meaning to life. We became eternal but forgot how to live. The image showed beings gathered in councils that span light years, all connected but all alone. Perfect but empty. We ask now what we could not ask before. We see that you have spread across stars while remaining yourselves. You still fight, you still create, you still love and hate and dream. Teach us how you do this. Show us the path back to living, even if we can never fully walk it again. A looked at Kiwin with wide eyes. They want our help. The beings who could destroy us with a thought want us to teach them. Kiwin thought about humanity's history, the wars, the mistakes, the pure path disaster, the constant struggle to be better while remaining human. All of it seemed so small compared to these eternal beings, but maybe that was the point. Maybe staying small and messy and human was itself an achievement. Saul bin Kiwin said, "Are you recording all of this every second?" The young artist replied, "Good. This goes back to Earth. Let everyone see it. Let them know that we're not just survivors, we're teachers now." Message ended, but a new interface appeared, a communication system waiting for a response. Kiwin could answer right now. He could open dialogue with beings who had the power to reshape reality. Weight of that decision pressed on him like a physical force. What do we tell them? I asked. Kiwin thought for a long moment. He thought about Deho terrified in his cargo ship, about young me watching Jin Woo die for knowledge, about Sang Woo and LT Unk and GT's followers turned into perfect shells, about every human who had ever struggled with being human. We tell them the truth. Kiwin finally said that being alive hurts, that it's supposed to hurt, that pain and joy are connected, and you can't have one without the other. We tell them that the price of feeling is worth paying, even when it destroys you. He activated the communication system. "This is Captain Key, one of the human exploration vessel. We received your message. We understand what you're asking, and yes, we will try to teach you, but you need to understand something first. We don't have answers. We're still figuring this out ourselves. If you want to learn how to be alive again, you have to accept that being alive means being uncertain." Response came immediately, as if they had been waiting 800 years to hear it. "Uncertainty," the voice said, and for the first time it sounded almost joyful. "Yes, teach us uncertainty." Saul Bin's recording of the journey became the most viewed piece of media in human history. People across 1,000 worlds watched as the message played, showing the moment when humanity became something more than survivors. They became hope for beings who had lost hope. And Kiwin, looking at the communication system still glowing softly, wondered if saving the beings who spared humanity might be the most human thing anyone had ever done. Yamin walked through the memorial garden where humanity first made contact with beings who could have destroyed them. The garden existed on a joint colony where humans and the beings now called the witnesses lived together, learning from each other. 1,500 years had passed since that terrifying day when Dejoe's ship went dark. The witnesses had kept their word. They learned slowly, painfully how to feel Again, they still possessed their incredible power, but now they used it to create rather than simply exist. Ya served as a cultural liaison, helping both species understand each other. It was difficult work. The witnesses remembered everything perfectly, while humans forgot constantly. The witnesses made decisions across decades while humans changed their minds daily, but somehow it worked. In a classroom nearby, Yunji taught human children about their history. She was a small woman with gray hair and a gentle voice, but her students respected her completely. Today's lesson covered the first contact as it did every year. Can anyone tell me what happened on that day? Yunji asked. A young student named Dong Hyan raised his hand. He was 12 years old and asked too many questions, which Unjai secretly loved about him. Witnesses found Earth and decided not to kill everyone, Dong Hun said, then left. Some students laughed. Unjai smiled patiently. That's the simple version. But why did they spare us? That's the important question. Because we reminded them of themselves. Another student offered. Yes. But what does that mean? What did they see in us? Dong Hyan spoke again, his voice skeptical. Why does it matter? That was forever ago. We're partners now. Why do we keep talking about almost being killed? It was a fair question. The kind adults struggled to answer. Yunji gestured for the students to follow her outside. They walked to the memorial garden where Ya Min worked. At the center stood a monument made of that strange alien metal shaped like two hands almost touching, one human hand, one witness hand with a small gap between them. The gap represented the moment of choice when the witnesses could have destroyed humanity but didn't. We remember, Yunji said, because that moment defined us. The witnesses had every reason to eliminate us. We were violent, chaotic, and dangerous. But they saw something worth saving, something worth preserving. Do you know what that was? Dong Hyan shrugged. Our chaos, our life, Yunji corrected gently. Our messy, complicated, unpredictable life. The witnesses had perfected themselves into beings of pure order. They could do anything except feel truly alive. When they looked at us, they saw what they had lost. And instead of destroying us out of jealousy or fear, they protected us. That's not just mercy, that's wisdom. Ya Min approached the class, noticing Unjai's lesson. They nodded to each other with easy familiarity. The witnesses are still learning from us, Jamin added. Every day they discover something new about emotions, creativity, or simply being present in the moment, and we learn from them too. Patience, perspective, the long view of history. Neither species is complete without the other now. But what if they decide we're too dangerous? Dong Hun asked. Question everyone's still worried about. Deep down, what if they changed their minds before anyone could answer? Alarms began blaring across the colony. Not drill alarms, real ones. Jin's communication device lit up with urgent messages. An unknown alien species had entered the system, not the witnesses. Something else, something hostile. Get the children to safety, Ya Min told Unjai, already running toward the command center. The new aliens arrived in ships that burned red against the black of space. They broadcast one message on all frequencies, a demand for surrender, followed by coordinates for human leaders to gather. The message made it clear what would happen if humans refused extinction. At the command Center, human and witness strategists. Work together, the witnesses could destroy the hostile fleet easily with their technology, but doing so would reveal their full power to this new threat, potentially starting a larger war. We should evacuate, one human commander suggested. Let the witnesses handle this. No, Yamin said firmly. That's not who we are. We don't hide behind others when danger comes. Witness named Kelmer, who had worked with Yamin for decades, spoke in their musical voice. We could eliminate the threat without your involvement. Why do you insist on participating? Because this is our home too, Jamin replied. Because being alive means facing danger, not avoiding it. You taught yourselves that by watching us. Now let us prove it. Reserve for smart. The battle plan came together quickly. Human ships, fast and unpredictable, would harass the enemy fleet. Witness vessels, powerful but obvious, would hold back as a final defense. The key was making the enemy think humans were alone, vulnerable, desperate. Dong Hun watched from the evacuation shelter as ships launched into space. Unjai sat beside him, calm despite the danger. Are we going to die? Dong Hyun asked. I don't know, Yoonji admitted, but I know we're going to fight. That's what being human means. We face impossible odds and try anyway. The battle lasted 6 hours. Human pilots flew with wild creativity, using tactics no ordered military mind would predict. They sacrificed ships to save others. They took insane risks that somehow paid off. They fought like humans had always fought, with courage and desperation and stubborn refusal to give up. The enemy fleet, confused by the chaotic resistance, made mistakes. And when they made mistakes, the witness ship struck with precision that made the hostile aliens retreat in terror. The victory message came through simultaneously in human words and witness harmonics. Together they had one different species, different methods, but one defense. Dong Hyun ran to find J.M. when the all-clear sounded. We won because we're chaotic. Jae-min, exhausted and relieved, smiled. We won because chaos and order worked together. The witnesses provided the power. We provided the unpredictability. Neither alone would have succeeded. That night Uni updated her lesson plans. The first contact was important, yes, but so was this new story, the story of what happened when the beings who spared humanity stood beside them when danger came. Dong Hun raised his hand the next day in class. I understand now. We remember the first contact because it started everything. The witnesses could have ended us, but they saw something worth saving, and now we prove every day that they made the right choice. Exactly, Unjai said proudly. Years later, when Dong Hyun became a historian himself, he added a new chapter to the historical records. He wrote about how humanity's greatest strength was never their technology or their numbers, it was their willingness to remain human even when perfection seemed easier. He wrote about the witnesses who had everything except life and found it by protecting beings who had nothing except life itself. He wrote about the moment when mercy became partnership and partnership became something neither species had a word for. Yet across human space the story continued to be told in schools and homes, in witness gatherings and human celebrations. The tale of the day the God showed mercy echoed through generations. Children heard about Dejo's terror, Yumi's discovery, sang Wu and LT Unk and GT's mistake, and Kiwan's courage. They learned that being human meant being flawed, and that flaws were not weaknesses but the cracks where light entered, and the witnesses, learning slowly to dream again, understood finally why they had spared humanity. Not because humans were perfect, but because they were beautifully, wonderfully, impossibly imperfect, and in a universe trending toward order and entropy, that imperfection was the most precious thing that existed. The story ended not with answers but with continuation, with children growing up to become teachers, with new challenges faced, together with the knowledge that mercy, once given, could echo across millennia and change everything. They spared humanity once, and humanity in return taught them how to live again. That was the story that would always be the story, forever engraved into the lore of two species who found salvation in each other.